The Galactic Council chambers hummed with a symphony of alien voices, each species contributing their unique tonal patterns to the cacophony. Ambassador Crick adjusted his crystalline vocal cords, preparing to deliver what he considered the most amusing presentation of his career. The holographic display before him showed primitive cave paintings, ancient sculptures, and faded manuscripts, all depicting beings of impossible power and divine authority. Esteemed colleagues, Crick began, his voice carrying the distinctive, harmonic resonance of his people. Today we examine the most fascinating delusion in known space, human mythology. A ripple of amusement passed through the assembly. The Verdani delegates rustled their leaf-like appendages in what served as their version of laughter, while the crystalline Zephyrians chimed in harmony. Even the stoic metallic collective seemed to vibrate with barely contained mirth. Dr. Elena Ross, the sole human representative, sat rigidly in her designated seat. Her fingers drummed against the armrest as she watched her species become the subject of galactic entertainment. Again. Observe, Crick continued, gesturing to the hologram. The humans claim their ancestors were visited by beings of unimaginable power. They call them gods, deities, divine entities. These supposed beings could command the elements, reshape reality, and traverse the cosmos at will. The display shifted to show images of Mount Olympus, Asgard, and countless other mythological realms. Each illustration sparked fresh waves of alien amusement. The bubble folk of Aquatica literally popped with laughter, their translucent forms expanding and contracting rapidly. The most remarkable aspect, Crick pressed on, is the consistency across their isolated civilizations. Despite having no contact with each other for millennia, humans from every continent developed remarkably similar mythologies. Flying beings, reality-bending powers, divine interventions, all describing the same impossible phenomena. Dr. Ross stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the chamber floor. The sound cut through the alien chatter like a blade. If I may interject, Ambassador Crick. Of course, Dr. Ross. Please, enlighten us with the human perspective on these creative stories. Elena's jaw tightened. She had endured 3 cycles of this mockery, watching as her people were dismissed as primitive storytellers. What if they weren't stories? The chamber fell silent. Even the constant background hum of life support systems seemed to pause in anticipation. Excuse me? Crick's crystalline features shifted to express confusion. What if our ancestors were telling the truth? What if they really did encounter beings of incredible power? The silence shattered as laughter erupted from every corner of the chamber. The hive mind's collective consciousness buzzed with amusement, while the gas wraiths flickered between dimensions in their equivalent of hysterics. Dr. Ross, the Verdani Prime Speaker rustled. Surely you don't believe such primitive superstitions. Elena's hands clenched into fists. I believe in possibilities. I believe in keeping an open mind. And I believe that sometimes the most extraordinary explanations are the correct ones. The human's passionate defense of her species' delusions only fueled more laughter. Crick's presentation continued, each new mythological example drawing greater ridicule. Tales of gods who walked among mortals, divine beings who shaped mountains and commanded storms, entities who could travel between worlds, all dismissed as the fevered imaginings of a species too primitive to understand the universe around them. Dr. Ross remained standing throughout the presentation, her presence a silent testament to human dignity in the face of cosmic mockery. She felt the weight of her entire species' reputation resting on her shoulders, the burden of being the sole voice defending humanity's worth among the stars. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. Sarge's Tales Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. As the presentation concluded, and the alien delegates began to disperse, still chuckling about human mythology, Elena stared at the holographic display. The images of gods and divine beings flickered in the artificial light, and for a moment, she could have sworn she saw something move within the ancient artwork. A subtle shift, a barely perceptible acknowledgement that sent chills down her spine. 3 days after the humiliating presentation, Dr. Elena Ross sat in her cramped quarters aboard the diplomatic station, reviewing the same mythological texts that had made her species a laughingstock. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had devoted her career to xenoarchaeology, studying alien civilizations, only to find herself defending human civilization from alien ridicule. Her personal communicator chimed with an incoming message from Earth. Director Hayes appeared on the screen, his weathered face bearing the weight of humanity's recent diplomatic failures. Elena, I've been reviewing the Council's response to the presentation. The agricultural trade agreement has been suspended indefinitely. The Verdani claim they can't trust the judgment of a species that believes in mythical sky beings. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the familiar ache of disappointment. Sir, I've been analyzing the patterns in our mythologies. The consistency Crick mentioned. It's not just remarkable, it's statistically impossible. Every isolated human culture developed similar stories about divine beings with nearly identical attributes. Elena, I need you to focus on diplomacy, not ancient fairy tales. The Council is considering revoking our membership entirely. After Hayes disconnected, Elena returned to her research with renewed determination. She pulled up comparative mythology databases, cross-referencing divine attributes across cultures. The patterns were undeniable. Beings of light who could fly, manipulate matter, and communicate across vast distances. Entities who could heal the sick, control weather, and travel between worlds instantaneously. Her analysis was interrupted by an urgent alert from the station's sensors. Something massive was approaching, something that defied conventional physics. The object appeared to be materializing from nowhere, growing larger and more solid with each passing second. Station alarms blared as the entity took shape. It was beautiful beyond description, a crystalline structure that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, pulsing with energy that made the station's most advanced reactors look like flickering candles. The being's form constantly shifted between states of matter, sometimes solid, sometimes pure energy, always maintaining an underlying geometry that hurt to look at directly. Captain Morse's voice crackled over the intercom. All personnel to emergency stations. We have an unidentified entity of unknown origin and capabilities. Repeat, this is not a drill. Elena watched through her viewport as the entity approached the station. It moved with purpose, its form radiating an aura of ancient power that made her skin tingle. This wasn't just another alien species. This was something else entirely. Something that existed beyond the normal parameters of space and time. The communication array suddenly blazed to life without any input from the station's crew. A voice filled the air, speaking in harmonics that bypassed the auditory system and communicated directly to consciousness itself. Greetings, children of the stars. We have heard the echo of our presence in your words, seen the memory of our passage in your stories. The small ones mock what they do not understand, but the young ones remember truth across the ages. Elena's heart raced as the implications hit her. The entity was speaking directly about human mythology, about the stories that had just been ridiculed in the council chambers. We are the architects of dawn, the shapers of possibility. Long ago, we walked among your ancestors, guiding their first steps toward understanding. We planted seeds of knowledge in primitive minds, lit the spark of curiosity in evolving consciousness. The station's crew stood frozen in amazement and terror. This being possessed technology, or abilities, that made their most advanced civilizations look like children playing with rocks. Your myths are memories. Your legends are history. The stories you tell of gods and divine beings are the echoes of our presence in your world's youth. We shaped your mountains, calmed your storms, and taught your ancestors to reach for the stars. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as the truth of her species' heritage revealed itself. Humanity hadn't invented gods, they had met them. But we are not gods, the entity continued. We are gardeners of possibility, shepherds of potential. We guided many species in their youth, but only one remembered us truly. Only one species preserved our teachings in story and song, painting our likenesses on cave walls and carving our deeds in stone. The being's attention seemed to focus on the station's human occupants. You alone among the younger races kept faith with memory. You alone honored the truth of our existence when others forgot or dismissed it as fantasy. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session within hours of the entity's appearance. Representatives from every major species crowded into the chambers, their previous confidence replaced by barely contained panic. The same beings who had laughed at human mythology now spoke in hushed tones about the impossible entity that had materialized at the edge of their space. Ambassador Crick's crystalline form flickered with nervous energy as he attempted to call the session to order. Colleagues, we face an unprecedented situation. The entity claims to be the source of human mythological beliefs. We must determine the appropriate response. Dr. Elena Ross entered the chamber to find herself the center of attention for the second time that week. The difference was palpable, where, before she had faced mockery and dismissal, now she encountered fearful curiosity and grudging respect. The entity's capabilities are beyond our current understanding, reported tech analyst Vex of the Metallic Collective. It appears to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, manipulating space-time in ways that violate known physics. Our most advanced sensors cannot determine its true nature or origin. The Verdani Prime speaker rustled nervously. It spoke of guiding species in their youth. The implications are disturbing. If these beings have been manipulating evolutionary development, not manipulating, Elena interjected, her voice carrying new authority. Nurturing, teaching. The entity made it clear they were gardeners, not conquerors. They helped species reach their potential rather than forcing artificial development. And you believe this claim? Asked the hive mind representative, its collective consciousness radiating skepticism. I believe the evidence. Human mythology contains technical knowledge that our ancestors shouldn't have possessed. Stories of flying vehicles, distant worlds, energy manipulation, all dismissed as fantasy until now. The chamber's attention shifted as new sensor data arrived. More entities were approaching, dozens of them, each radiating the same impossible energy signature as the first. The architects of Dawn were not alone. Council members. Captain Morse's voice crackled through the communication system. We're receiving a transmission from the entity cluster. They're requesting an audience with Dr. Ross specifically. Elena felt the weight of every alien gaze upon her. She had spent her career studying other species, but now she found herself thrust into the role of humanity's sole representative to beings that transcended conventional understanding. I'll take the meeting, she announced, her voice steady, despite the magnitude of the moment. The transmission materialized in the chamber's center, the entity's form shifting and pulsing with contained energy. When it spoke, its words carried the weight of eons. Young Elena, daughter of the species that remembers, your kind stands at a crossroads. The small ones who mock your heritage now cower before our presence, but fear is not wisdom. We offer choice to all who dwell in this region of space. The entity's attention seemed to encompass the entire assembly. We have returned because the garden grows wild. Species war among themselves, wisdom gives way to pride, and the younger races dismiss the experiences of their predecessors. The time has come to prune the thorns and nurture the fruit. Ambassador Crick found his voice. What do you propose? Transformation. Those who accept our guidance will be elevated to new levels of existence. Those who reject our presence will be left to find their own path among the stars. But know this, the choice once made cannot be unmade. Elena stepped forward, her heart pounding. What does transformation entail? Evolution beyond your current understanding. We will share knowledge that will reshape your civilizations, unlock potential that currently lies dormant in your species. But the price is surrender of your current limitations. The chamber erupted in heated discussion. Some species saw opportunity in the entity's offer, while others viewed it as a threat to their independence. The Metallic Collective debated the technological implications, while the bubble folk worried about losing their aquatic nature. The humans will be offered first choice, the entity continued. They alone preserved our memory through the ages of forgetting. They alone maintained faith in possibilities beyond their current perception. Elena felt the expectations of countless civilizations pressing down upon her. Her species had been mocked for their mythology, but now those same myths might determine the fate of the galaxy. How long do we have to decide? She asked. One rotation of your homeworld around its star. Choose wisely, daughter of memory. The garden awaits renewal, and you must decide whether humanity will bloom or wither in the coming transformation. The four entity's form began to fade, but its final words echoed through the chamber. Remember, young ones, myths are not always fiction. Sometimes they are prophecy waiting to be fulfilled. The year that followed became known as the time of choosing. Across human space, the news of the architect's return sparked reactions ranging from religious fervor to scientific skepticism. Dr. Elena Ross found herself at the center of a species-wide debate that would determine humanity's future. She had returned to Earth to consult with the Global Council, but found the planet divided. Major cities hosted daily demonstrations, with some groups hailing the architects as returning gods, while others denounced them as alien manipulators. The scientific community was equally split, with some researchers embracing the possibility of transcendence, while others warned of the dangers of surrendering human autonomy. Director Hayes met Elena at the Global Council headquarters in Geneva. The weight of recent events had aged him visibly, his hair gone completely gray in the months since the architect's appearance. Elena, the population is terrified. Half believe we're being offered salvation. The other half think we're being prepared for slavery. The religious leaders are divided. Some see this as divine intervention, others as the work of false prophets. Elena reviewed the latest reports from the observation stations. The architects maintained their positions at the edge of human space, neither advancing nor retreating. Their presence was a constant reminder of the choice that lay ahead. "What's the scientific consensus on their capabilities?" she asked. "Overwhelming. They've demonstrated mastery over fundamental forces we barely understand. Matter manipulation, dimensional travel, energy projection. They make our most advanced technology look like stone tools." Meanwhile, the Galactic Council faced its own crisis. The architects had extended their offer to all species, but with a clear hierarchy. Humanity would choose first, followed by species based on their preservation of historical memory and cultural continuity. The races that had mocked human mythology now found themselves at the bottom of the priority list. Ambassador Crick arrived on Earth as part of a diplomatic mission. His crystalline form dimmed with what Elena had learned to recognize as anxiety. The meeting took place in a secure facility beneath the Global Council building. "Dr. Ross, my government requests your assistance. The architects have indicated that species who reject their offer may find themselves disadvantaged in future cosmic affairs." Elena studied the alien diplomat who had ridiculed her people's beliefs. "What kind of assistance?" "Your species has a connection to these beings that we lack. Perhaps you could advocate for us? Explain that our dismissal of your mythology was merely scientific skepticism, not disrespect." The irony was not lost on Elena. The same beings who had laughed at human, primitive superstitions now begged for human intervention with the very entities they had mocked. "The architects don't seem interested in our opinions of other species," Elena replied. "They've made it clear that each civilization must make its own choice based on its own merits." As the deadline approached, Elena found herself studying the mythological texts with new eyes. The stories of divine beings ascending worthy mortals to godhood, of humans being chosen for special purposes, of transformation through divine grace, all took on new meaning in light of the architect's offer. She discovered patterns she had missed before. The myths spoke not just of gods visiting Earth, but of humans eventually joining them among the stars. The stories suggested that humanity's divine encounters were not random visitations, but part of a long-term plan to prepare the species for eventual transcendence. The final decision meeting was held in a specially constructed chamber that could accommodate representatives from every human nation and colony. Elena stood before the assembled delegates, holding humanity's fate in her words. "We stand at the threshold of transformation," she began. "Our ancestors met these beings and preserved their memory through millennia of forgetting. Now they offer us the chance to join them in ways we can barely comprehend." The debate that followed was intense and emotional. Some argued for accepting the offer, viewing it as humanity's destined evolution. Others insisted on maintaining human independence, regardless of the cost. "The question isn't whether we trust the architects," Elena continued. "The question is whether we trust ourselves. Our myths tell us that humans were always meant for more than our current existence. The architects aren't offering to change us. They're offering to help us become what we were always meant to be." In the end, the vote was closer than expected. 51% of humanity chose transformation, while 49% preferred to remain unchanged. The architects, however, had anticipated this division. Choice is the essence of growth, their spokesperson announced. Those who choose transformation will ascend. Those who prefer their current existence will be honored and protected. Both paths serve the greater design. Elena volunteered to be among the first to undergo the transformation process. As she prepared for the journey to the architect's vessel, she reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this moment. From cave paintings to cosmic transcendence, guided by beings who had never truly left them. Elena's transformation began aboard the primary architect vessel, a structure that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. As she stepped through the portal, her consciousness expanded beyond the limitations of human perception. She could see the underlying patterns of reality, the mathematical foundations of existence itself. The process was not painful, but it was overwhelming. Her body remained recognizably human, but her mind touched vastness that made galaxies seem like grains of sand. She understood, for the first time, what the architects truly were. Not gods, but evolved beings who had transcended the boundaries between matter and energy, time and space, individual and collective consciousness. "Welcome, daughter of memory," the lead architect communicated through direct consciousness transfer. "You begin to see the garden as we see it, not as it is, but as it could become." Elena's enhanced perception allowed her to observe the transformation of other volunteers. Each human who accepted the change retained their essential nature, while gaining abilities that defied conventional understanding. They could manipulate matter at the molecular level, communicate across vast distances instantly, and perceive the connections between all living things. Meanwhile, on Earth and throughout human space, the division between the transformed and unchanged created new challenges. The enhanced humans found themselves increasingly isolated from their original communities, their expanded consciousness making normal social interaction difficult. Dr. Marcus Webb, Elena's former colleague who had chosen to remain unchanged, watched the developing situation with growing concern. "We're losing them," he reported to Director Hayes. "They're still human in form, but their minds are moving beyond us. Some have already stopped speaking in conventional language, communicating only through those quantum resonance patterns." The Galactic Council observed these developments with a mixture of fear and envy. The transformed humans demonstrated capabilities that surpassed the most advanced alien technologies. They could travel between stars without ships, manipulate planetary environments with thought alone, and access information stored in the quantum structure of spacetime itself. Ambassador Crick's species, the Zephyrians, had ultimately rejected the architect's offer, choosing to maintain their crystalline purity over uncertain transformation. Now they watched as their former subject of mockery evolved beyond their comprehension. "The humans are becoming something else," Crick reported to his government. "They retain loyalty to their unchanged kin, but they're developing perspectives that we cannot follow. They speak of gardening reality and shepherding possibility in ways that echo the architects themselves." Elena, now serving as a bridge between the architects and humanity, found herself changed in ways that went beyond mere enhancement. She could perceive the intentions and fears of entire civilizations, feel the currents of history flowing toward predetermined outcomes. The human myths had been more than memory. They had been prophecy. "The garden has many species," she explained to the unchanged human leadership, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated with meaning beyond words. "Each has its role, its purpose in the greater design. Humanity was chosen not for superiority, but for stewardship. We remember because we were meant to guide." The implications became clear as more architect vessels appeared throughout the galaxy. They were not conquerors, but cultivators, preparing the cosmos for a transformation that would reshape the fundamental nature of reality itself. The species that had preserved their connection to the architects through myth and memory would become the shepherds of this new age. The metallic collective, with their emphasis on logic and efficiency, struggled to understand the emotional and spiritual dimensions of the transformation. The bubble folk, accustomed to their aquatic environment, found the cosmic perspective overwhelming. Only a few species, those that had maintained some form of mythological or spiritual tradition, proved capable of accepting the architect's guidance without losing their essential nature. Elena's role evolved from ambassador to teacher, helping other species understand what the transformation entailed. She worked with the Verdani, whose plant-like nature had given them a unique appreciation for growth and change. She assisted the gas wraiths, whose dimensional shifting abilities made them natural candidates for enhancement. The choice is always individual, she explained to a gathering of species representatives. No civilization can be forced to accept transformation, but those who do must understand that they become gardeners of reality, responsible for nurturing the growth of others. The year of choosing drew to a close, and the galaxy faced a new reality. Humanity had become the bridge between the architects and the younger races. Their mythology transformed from amusing delusion to essential truth. The gods had indeed returned, but they were not the distant authoritarian deities of primitive imagination. They were teachers, preparing their students for graduation to a higher level of existence. Elena stood on the observation deck of the architect vessel, watching stars being born in distant nebulae. Her enhanced perception allowed her to see the seeds of future civilizations in the cosmic dust, potential gardens waiting to be cultivated. The myths of her ancestors had been more accurate than anyone imagined. Humanity was destined to walk among the stars, not as conquerors, but as gardeners of infinite possibility. 5 years after the transformation, the galaxy had become unrecognizable. The enhanced humans, now calling themselves the Shepherds, had established a new order that transcended traditional concepts of governance and territory. They worked in harmony with the architects, tending to the cosmic garden with abilities that made them seem like gods to the unchanged species. Elena, now the Prime Shepherd, maintained her connection to unchanged humanity while embracing her role as a cosmic gardener. Her consciousness could span multiple star systems simultaneously, monitoring the growth and development of civilizations throughout the galaxy. She had become living proof that the ancient myths contained not just memory, but destiny. The Galactic Council had dissolved, replaced by a more fluid system of guidance and cooperation. The Shepherds did not rule in the traditional sense. They nurtured, protected, and guided, allowing each species to develop according to its own nature, while preventing conflicts that could damage the greater garden. Director Hayes, now elderly, and representing the unchanged human government, met with Elena in a specially constructed facility that could accommodate both normal and enhanced consciousness. The meeting required technological assistance to bridge the gap between their different levels of existence. Elena, I need to understand what we've become, Hayes said, his voice carrying the weight of representing a species that had been split by transcendence. The unchanged humans feel abandoned. They see their transformed brethren as increasingly alien, despite the protection and guidance you provide. Elena's response came through multiple channels simultaneously: verbal communication, quantum resonance, and direct emotional transfer. We remain human in our core, Director, but we have accepted responsibility for something greater than our individual survival. The unchanged humans are not abandoned. They are treasured as the foundation from which we grew. The transformation had indeed created challenges. Enhanced humans struggled to relate to their unchanged families and friends, while the unchanged often felt inferior or forgotten. Some unchanged humans had begun to resent the Shepherds, viewing them as traitors to their species' independence. Meanwhile, other species faced their own challenges with the new cosmic order. The Zephyrians, who had rejected transformation, found themselves increasingly isolated as their crystalline nature made them incompatible with the organic growth patterns the Shepherds promoted. The Metallic Collective struggled with concepts of spiritual evolution that defied their logical frameworks. Ambassador Crick, now serving as a liaison between the unchanged species and the Shepherds, had developed a grudging respect for human resilience. Your species has achieved something remarkable, he admitted to Elena during one of their consultations. You have maintained your essential humanity while accepting cosmic responsibility. My people fear that such transformation would destroy what makes us Zephyrian. Transformation enhances rather than replaces, Elena explained. The architects do not seek to create uniform beings, but to help each species reach its unique potential. Zephyrians transformed would become more crystalline, more harmonic, more perfectly themselves, not less. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert from the Shepherd monitoring network. A previously unknown species had emerged from the galaxy's outer rim, beings of pure energy that moved through space like living stars. Their appearance had triggered panic among several younger civilizations, who interpreted them as invasion forces. Elena's consciousness expanded to encompass the situation instantly. The energy beings were not invaders but refugees, fleeing some catastrophe in their original galaxy. Their needs were simple: safe harbor and time to recover their strength. But their appearance had destabilized local space-time, creating navigation hazards for other species. This is why we accepted transformation, Elena communicated to the assembled shepherds. Events like this require immediate, coordinated response across multiple star systems. Unchanged minds, however brilliant, cannot process the complexity quickly enough. The shepherds worked in concert, their enhanced abilities allowing them to stabilize local space-time while communicating with the energy beings in their native form of electromagnetic poetry. Within hours, they had established a sanctuary zone where the refugees could rest without endangering other species. The response demonstrated the value of the shepherd system to even the most skeptical observers. No unchanged government could have reacted so quickly or effectively to such a complex crisis. The energy beings, grateful for the assistance, shared their knowledge of distant galaxies and the cosmic forces that shaped the universe's evolution. "You see the necessity," Elena explained to Director Hayes afterward. "The universe is vast and filled with wonders and dangers that unchanged minds cannot adequately address. The shepherds do not seek to dominate. We seek to enable all species to flourish in an infinite garden." Hayes nodded, his understanding tinged with melancholy. "I begin to see why the myths spoke of gods and mortals as separate but connected. The enhanced humans have become something more than human, but they haven't forgotten their origins." "We could never forget," Elena replied. "The unchanged humans are our roots, our foundation, our reminder of what we were before we became what we needed to be. The myths our ancestors told were not stories of abandonment, but of expansion. Humans growing beyond their original limits while remaining true to their essential nature." As the meeting concluded, Elena reflected on the journey from mythological mockery to cosmic stewardship. The aliens had laughed at human myths, but those myths had been preparation for a destiny that transcended their wildest imagination. The gods had indeed returned, but they were not the distant authoritarian figures of primitive imagination. They were humanity's children, grown into cosmic gardeners, tending the infinite possibilities of the universe. 10 years had passed since the transformation, and the galaxy had settled into a new rhythm of growth and harmony. The shepherds had become a stabilizing force throughout known space, their presence ensuring that conflicts were resolved before they could escalate into wars, and that emerging civilizations received the guidance they needed to flourish. Elena, now existing as much in the quantum realm as in physical space, had evolved beyond her original role as Prime Shepherd. She had become something unprecedented, a bridge between the architects and all the younger species, translating cosmic wisdom into forms that individual civilizations could understand and accept. The unchanged humans had also found their place in the new order. Rather than being relegated to irrelevance, they had become the heart of the galactic community, the steady foundation that kept the cosmic garden grounded in the values and emotions that made life meaningful. Their unchanged perspective provided essential balance to the enhanced beings, who sometimes became lost in the vastness of cosmic consciousness. Dr. Marcus Webb, Elena's former colleague, had become the leader of the Unchanged Council, representing the interests of all species who had chosen to remain in their original forms. His first meeting with Elena in 2 years required a specially designed interface that could handle the vast difference in their levels of existence. "Elena, I need to ask you something that the Unchanged have been wondering about," Webb said, his words translated through quantum resonance to reach her expanded consciousness. "Do you ever regret the choice? Do you miss being fully human?" Elena's response came through harmonics that conveyed meaning beyond language. "Marcus, I am more human now than I ever was before. The transformation didn't diminish my humanity. It revealed its true scope. Every myth our ancestors told, every dream of transcendence, every hope for something greater, all of it was preparing us for this moment." The truth of her words was evident in the thriving galactic community that surrounded them. The Verdani had accepted selective transformation, becoming master cultivators who could nurture entire ecosystems with thought alone. The gas wraiths had embraced dimensional enhancement, becoming living bridges between parallel realities. Even some Zephyrians had overcome their fear of change, their crystalline harmonics now serving as a universal language of beauty and mathematics. The species that had initially mocked human mythology now studied it with reverence. The ancient stories had become historical documents, guides for understanding the nature of cosmic evolution and the relationship between enhanced and unchanged beings. Universities throughout the galaxy offered courses in human mythological prophecy, recognizing the texts as accurate predictions of transcendent possibilities. Ambassador Crick, now serving as an advisor to the Unchanged Council, had become one of the most vocal advocates for preserving human mythological traditions. His crystalline form had developed new harmonic patterns that reflected his deep respect for the species he had once dismissed. The humans taught us that some truths are too large for immediate comprehension, he explained to a gathering of unchanged species representatives. Their myths preserved these truths across millennia, waiting for the moment when their species could fulfill their cosmic purpose. We must learn to recognize such wisdom in our own traditions. The architects themselves had begun to withdraw from direct involvement in galactic affairs, satisfied that the shepherds could guide the cosmic garden's development. Their final message to the assembled species was delivered through Elena, her consciousness serving as the perfect translator between cosmic wisdom and individual understanding. The garden grows as intended, the architects communicated through her. The young species learn to tend reality with wisdom and compassion. The cycle of growth continues, and new gardeners prepare to take their place among the stars. We have fulfilled our purpose in this realm of existence, and we now turn our attention to distant gardens that await our guidance. Elena felt a profound sense of completion as the architects began their departure. The beings who had once walked among ancient humans, inspiring myths and legends, were moving on to new cosmic responsibilities. But their legacy remained in the enhanced humans who had accepted the role of shepherds, and in the unchanged humans who preserved the essential values that made their guidance meaningful. The final gathering brought together representatives from every species in the galaxy. Enhanced and unchanged beings shared the same space, their differences no longer sources of division, but complementary aspects of a greater whole. The shepherds provided cosmic perspective and the ability to address galaxy-spanning challenges, while the unchanged species maintained the emotional connections and individual perspectives that kept the cosmic garden truly alive. The myths were right, Elena announced to the assembly, her words carrying the weight of cosmic truth. Humans were always meant to walk among the stars, not as conquerors, but as gardeners. We were chosen not for our superiority, but for our ability to remember truth across the ages of forgetting, and to grow into the beings we were always meant to become. As the celebration continued, Elena reflected on the journey from ridicule to recognition. The aliens had laughed at human myths, dismissing them as primitive fantasies. But those myths had been more than stories. They had been preparation, prophecy, and promise. The gods had indeed returned, but they were not the distant, authoritarian figures of ancient imagination. They were humanity's children, grown into cosmic gardeners, tending the infinite possibilities of existence with wisdom, learned from the very myths that had once been mocked. The galaxy settled into its new rhythm, guided by beings who had once been human, but had become something more, while never forgetting the essential truths that made them human in the first place. In the end, the greatest myth of all had proven true, that ordinary beings could indeed transcend their limitations and become the gods they had always dreamed of serving. The stars themselves seemed to pulse with approval as the cosmic garden flourished under the care of its newest gardeners, and the ancient human myths found their ultimate fulfillment in the infinite expanse of space and time.